So rounding, I think everybody here gets the gist of it, right? And this is something that you actually have to know because in year 12, okay, one of the biggest mistakes we find is kids don't know how to round numbers anymore. I've seen kids, right, when their calculator says 3.56721193.4, they'll write that as an answer, even though it says round to one decimal place. Okay? So you need to know how to round because what happens is if you write an answer like this in the exam or in a SAC, your teachers will mark you as incorrect, okay, because it said round to one or two significant figures. And the funny thing is, if you do this for all of your answers in the exam in year 12, you'll actually get it wrong. They won't give you the mark. Okay, and the reason why is because at the very front of the booklet of the exam that you get, it actually says round all your answers to 2 sig figs or 3 sig figs. Okay, so you have to be mindful of that. Do not make that mistake of not rounding your answers because you will lose so many marks from it. Like an A+ student who doesn't round, okay, who gets everything correct but never rounds their answer, instead of getting like 80% on your exam, you might go down to like 60 or 70, 80, 50. Okay, just because you didn't round your answers. So it's really important that you do that. All right, so I think we all understand how rounding works. Well, let's get into significant figures, which is what I've been talking about this a lot of the time. So a significant figure, okay, the idea behind this is you're looking at the important numbers. Okay, so I'm going to maybe copy this down. So it's about focusing on the important numbers. Okay, that's what we're looking at for significant figures, focusing on your important numbers. And when I say important numbers, it's the numbers that represent the number that you're trying to round or make smaller. Okay, so you want to try and make, if you're trying to round a number, for example, okay, you're obviously looking at the important or the significant numbers there. Similar with significant figures, the idea is you're just looking at the numbers that actually matter and then you're shortening it so it's easier to work with. Okay, so some important rules to understand with significant figures. Any non-zero digit number is significant. So I'm going to highlight this. Non-zero digit is significant. Okay, that means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They're all significant figures. Okay, or in other words, they're all important numbers. Okay, any zeros between non-zero digits is significant. So that's another one to think about. So zeros that are between non-zero is significant. Okay, zeros that are in between your significant figures are considered significant. In general, okay, most of the time, the number 0 is not significant. Okay, so keep that in mind. But you also have to remember these rules. Okay, so I'm going to put that here because they didn't include it. Oops. Okay, so 0 is generally not significant. So not a significant number. Okay, but you have to keep in mind these rules as well. So it's 0 can only be significant if it's between non-zeros. Between a non-zero figure, like a 1, 2, or 3. The other thing to remember as well is that trailing zeros, where there's a decimal point, is significant. So any number, any 0 after your decimal ends up being significant. Okay, so in this case, these two numbers, why did they include it? Well, there's some significance to it. Okay, same with this. So any 0 after the decimal is generally a significant figure. Okay, but any 0 that looks like this, so this is where it gets a bit confusing. If it looks like this, 0.0003, okay, these zeros are not significant. It has to be after. Okay, so the zeros have to be after that 3 for it to be significant. In this case, these are not significant. There's only one significant figure here, which is the 3. Okay, but this will make more sense when we put it to practice. Okay, so like I said, that's not significant. And if there's zeros at the end of a number, like this, they're not significant. So there's no significance to those zeros. Okay, let's go through some examples here. Okay, similar rules. Yes, we'll skip that. Okay. Let's go let's do some of these. Okay, we're going to round each of these numbers. We're going to skip this because we've already done decimals. We're just going to focus on the significant part. So rounding them to 2 significant figures. All right, I'm going to go around and ask some of you guys some answers, ask some questions. All right, let's look at A. I'm going to look at A here, 1.333. Okay, let's see. Tori, can you tell me? If I look at this decimal number here, okay, and I want to round it to 2 significant figures, which means I want to focus on 2 important numbers. What are the 2 important numbers here? Yes, 1 and 3. Why aren't these ones important? Why do you think they're not important? Yeah, there's already 3, and this is saying I only want 2 numbers to represent all of this. So you're not going to use 0.33, for example, because that doesn't make sense. What you want to use is 1.3. So in this case, to round this to 2 significant or 2 important numbers, it's going to be 1.3.
So it's 2 decimal places.
Not quite. This is only 1 decimal place. See?
I know, but if the thing says 2 decimal places.
We're skipping that. We're just focusing on the significant figures. This part, second part. Yeah. Thanks for pointing that out there. Yeah, just scribble that out because we've done a lot of decimal stuff. I don't think we need to now. All right, let's look at B. Okay, 2 significant figures for that one, please. Fahad, I'm going to ask you actually, 6.268. Give me 2 numbers here that are really important to represent all of this.
Without rounding up or with rounding up?
You might have to round, yes.
6.3.
Good. Okay, because the reason why he's correct is because you're not going to use 0.2868 to represent the number. You want to use 6.2 because it's, again, you're trying to represent this number as best you can. So in this case, you want to focus on this number and this number. That being the case, Fahad understood that this 2 will become a 3 because of that 6. Okay, so 6.3. Okay, let's look at this one. Hakton, I'm going to ask you for this one, for C, 0.5563. Okay, what are the 2 important numbers that you can use to represent this?
0.5.
And? Yep, so you're 5 and, well, actually 0 is not significant, remember that.
5.
Good, 5. But what happens to this 5?
It rounds up.
2?
0.6.
Good, so it becomes 0.56. Okay, there's 2 important numbers to represent this. Person next to Hakton, what was your name? Yeah. Sorry? Jacob, can you tell me 2 important numbers, okay, to represent this? Because I want 2 significant figures, so 2 very important numbers. What would they be?
15.
Wait, why 15? Okay, well, tell me what's the first one? This one here, right?
7, and you have to do 4.
Good, so this 7 will change to 4. And remember, I just want 2 numbers to represent this. So it becomes, well, actually it's 4, 700. But it then becomes 15, and everything else becomes 0. Okay? So it's 1500, or 15,000, sorry. Alright, let's do a couple more. I won't do all of them. Alright, let's do E, real quick. Alright, what was your name? Natasha, can you give me 2 important numbers to represent this? Good, it becomes 11, okay? Now she's noticed that this 0 is also significant because it's between 2 significant figures. So I'm not going to use 0.88, okay, because that's silly. This number becomes, so it's 10.882, becomes 11. All right, so do you understand as well now there's some rounding involved here. This 8 affects that 0, which becomes a 11. All right, F, person next to Natasha, what was your name? Mia, can you give me 2 important numbers here to represent this? So what are 2 important? Good, 76, yeah? And what happens to the rest of these? Good, they become 0. So 76,008.037 becomes just 76,000. Okay, everything else becomes a 0. And last one, person next to Mia. What was your name? And Anthony, yes, I remember. What about for G? Okay, can you give me two really important numbers for G that you want to use? Good, 12. Okay, but what happens to that 12? Okay, so if the
And present of 13.
good. So if I'm focusing on this, and I want to, make only two significant figures. Okay, that 8 will affect that 2, which becomes 13. Okay. All right. I hope that sort of made sense. But the next part here is to now look at I might do a couple of questions from each one and then let you guys work. Okay. So for question 6, let's go to 1D question 6. All right. So this one here. So for question 6, this is saying for each of these values, we need to state how many important numbers there are, okay, that we can use. So in this case, A, how many are there, guys? Remember, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, they're all significant. 0 is not significant except if it's between non-zeros or if it's after some decimal numbers, okay? So in this case, let's look at A. How many significant figures for A? You can call it out.
5.
5, good. Okay, did anyone say 5 before? I couldn't hear it. What about for B? Good, 6, because even though that's a 0, it's between non-zeros. What about for C? How many significant figures? 1, good, there's only 1 for this one. Okay, what about for D? How many significant figures? Have a think.
3.
Good, 3. That 0 is not significant. Okay, it is there though, because it's a placeholder. It's just saying it's telling you it's 0 point something something. Okay, what about E? This one might be tricky. How many significant figures?
1.
2. Okay, because if there is a 0 at the end of your decimal, they're considered significant. There's a reason why they left it there. Maybe it's to say that we've rounded this number. Okay, so after that, there should be 2 here. So if there's a 0 at the end of a decimal, it's significant. What about for this one? Good, only 1. Okay, because the 0 is before the decimal. So before this last number here, which is a 6. There's only 1. For G, 2. Good. And for H, 1, 2, 3, 4. Correct. Okay. Do we sort of get it? I hope. Yep. All right, cool. I'm going to stop there now.